Stay your schedule.
Hello art family. For this video I am taking a look at the courthouse in Pasadena, and I'm sketching this on Crescent illustration board using M-gram gouache. So I'm using a wax pencil here, a Prismacolor red pencil, because that way when I'm doing the kind of initial lay-in I don't lose my pencils, it kind of stays where I leave it. The first thing I do is set up a vertical line, because one of the most common things in people's drawings you'll see is things getting a little bit wonky when it comes to towers or architecture. So if you're doing like a steeple in a small town or some kind of tall, structure, it's good to throw down a middle line. That way you can keep things symmetrical. And then from there, I'm trying to just go into a mindset of thinking about this thing in a two-point perspective, simplified shape mode, so to speak. So I'm trying to just picture this as one big kind of can of soup, and there's a sphere on top of it, like a ball, and then basically a shoebox to the side of it. So I'm trying to think of those basic shapes, and first I lay in that initial eye line, conveniently there's a figure in the bottom of the scene, so that kind of gives us an indication of where the eye line is. And from there I can draw a straight horizontal line, and then arbitrarily kind of fan the rest of that perspective out. There's a lot of videos on two-point perspective that could help if you want more information on that. But just arbitrarily kind of fanning that perspective out and then building off of that. So the first layer I put down is a wash, just to get rid of the white on the page. And I'm using yellow ochre and a little bit of burnt umber and a lot of water initially. And I kind of lay that wash over everything to get rid of the white and give a kind of ambient glow to everything. So even the sky and the little bits and places, the cracks between the shapes, will have just this kind of soft ambient glow. Then I'm moving into doing the gradient. Another trick you can fall into when you're doing a sketch is a lot of times you'll think the sky is the lightest thing. And it's important here that we simplify our values into a simple, big shapes and block those shapes in. Once we do that, we can kind of subdivide other values. But the most important thing is to figure out our clear and distinct sets of value. A lot of times the sky is the lightest, but if I went into this making the sky super light and it blended in with the building, or if the sky blends in with the shadow side, there's a good chance we lose that kind of depth and color character that we could really kind of reach for with this sketch to make it the most luminous that we can. So what I'm doing is closing an eye and squinting at the reference. And if you do that with me now, look at it, close an eye and squint, and you'll notice that the light side of the building facing the sunlight is actually catching most of the light. So that's going to be our lightest thing. And then we can see it's just a step down. It's a little bit grayer, the sky. So I'm going to knock the sky down just a little bit. And then from there, I'm going to start putting in my objects. And then it's important to kind of make sure that our big shapes are all working. So going for those big shapes, I'm going to start looking comparatively. So looking and comparing area to area. Is it lighter? Is it darker? So if we close an eye and squint, we'll notice that the sky is a little bit darker than the face of the building catching the light, but the shadow of the building, the overall group, that large kind of shape, is all a little bit darker than the sky. So I'm noticing that distinction, and I'm building this sketch based on that distinction. I'm not really one to enjoy a lot of detailed rendering, so I'm not going to articulate every specific detail. If you enjoy doing that sort of thing, by all means, do that all you want. I don't personally love rendering small details or typography, that kind of thing. To me, I think I want to pick the thing that this sketch is about. To me, this is about the light. So I'm kind of just chasing that sort of North Star in this scene and not getting too carried away with details. The one thing I am conscious of, though, is the fact that light is coming from the sun and bouncing off of objects like the ground and the patios and the window areas. It's bouncing up into the lower facing planes. So before I go in to block in our big shadow shape, I am going to use some yellow ochre kind of thickly and block in all the planes that are facing down towards the ground or facing into it themselves. So like where the two columns are here and there, you'll see there's like places where there's two columns, and inside those little arch windows, I'm just thinking about that light kind of bouncing, zigzagging around in those corners and pockets and creating a little bit of a glow. So I'm going to add all those planes in before we start in on this large ambient kind of big shadow shape. And that big shadow shape takes up most of the building, all the way down. And I'm conscious of where it is sort of pulling across the form of the building, but for the most part it's just covering a lot of the building. As I go, I'm going from a kind of cobalt blue and ultramarine. It's very ambient blue. You know, we have the curve of the atmosphere creates this kind of soft blue light that enriches the shadow. So it's not strong enough to illuminate the object. It's only strong enough to kind of fill the shadow. So our shadows, I'm kind of pitching a little heavier blue and trying to really catch that ambient blue color from the sky. And I used a little bit of alizarin so it shifts a little bit into a kind of purple in some areas, because I was trying to keep the key or the color saturation relatively high in this one, just to kind of make it more interesting, have more character there. You know, you lose a lot of that color character when you're painting from a photograph, so I'm trying to bring back some of that magic from when I was actually standing there. Well, I went there to go painting, as I move towards where the shadow gets closer to the lit subjects, you know, closer to those low facing planes, those patios, some of the window areas, the little kind of porch things that stick out, I'm going to use some yellow ochre there as well, because I want to catch the sense that that light is bouncing everywhere. So it's hitting those little kind of rails and ledges and bouncing up into the lower planes and stuff too. So that will help give us that nice kind of rich contrast. So what we're really after here is contrasts. So contrasts kind of create the drama and the interest in the scene. So we're looking for contrast in thick to thin, big to small, light to dark, and in that case, you know, orange and blue, warm and cool. These are all contrasts that we can play against one another that will create a kind of vibration and an interest in our scene that we can sort of turn the dials up, play them up a little bit, to create interesting marks and hopefully create an interesting scene. And now that we've blocked everything in, it's just a matter of kind of noodling away at the little bits of details, which you could just do until it looks photo accurate. I kind of take it to a point that I feel like the message that I was after is there, the light in this case, which is what I was chasing after, is conveyed, and then I kind of let it go and move on to the next one. So that's it, going to be it for this video of the Pasadena Courthouse in gouache. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I will see you in the next video. In the meantime, happy sketching.